Hi, I'm Lori Duncan, Crop Sustainability Specialist for the University of Tennessee Extension and Assistant Professor in the UT Biosystems Engineering and Soil Science Department. Today we're asking the question, does no-till mean never till? As evidenced by the existence and success of the Mile and No-Till Field Day, Tennessee is the leading state in the nation for percent of crop production under no-till management. According to the 2017 USDA Census of Ag, 79% of our production in Tennessee is under no-till management, which is in stark contrast to some of our other Mid-South neighbors. An additional 13% of our state is considered to be under reduced tillage, leaving around 8% under conventional intensive tillage, compared to Missouri at 21%, Arkansas at 46%, and Mississippi at 45%. The adoption of no-till systems in Tennessee has been a resounding success for reducing soil loss on our highly erodible soils. So why are we hearing more interest in tillage in recent years? There are several challenges with maintaining a no-till system. Some producers in heavy soils, especially in or near river bottoms, are perceiving increased soil compaction. Some are concerned with nutrient stratification, and most are considering all available avenues to manage herbicide-resistant weeds. Many no-till or minimum till producers in Tennessee and across the Mid-South have begun to question if the shallow rooting structures and limited effective rooting depth of recent crops may be attributed to soil compaction. Limited effective rooting zones have been highlighted by many agronomists as a potential yield limitation for several years, but the issue received a tremendous amount of attention during the summer of 19. A prolonged period of rain during the first weeks of July resulted in saturated soils. Complete saturation of the upper soil profile had negligible impacts on plants without root restrictive soil profiles, but reports of plant death in some field areas began trickling in across the region. Investigation of the root structures in each of these fields revealed a taproot of less than 3 inches and almost all lateral rooting structures within the top 2 inches of the soil profile. As the production system balances labor shortages with larger equipment, more acres are now harvested with each machine. Sprayers can weigh upwards of 40,000 pounds and a full cotton picker upwards of 80,000 pounds. The increasingly wet climate in the Mid-South has forced equipment to traffic fields during periods of excessive soil moisture, further compounding the effects on soil compaction. Vertical stratification of soil nutrients and soil carbon in no-till systems is well documented. Immobile nutrients like phosphorus will accumulate near the surface or depth of application in the soil profile. This should be noted when determining soil sampling depth. The redistribution of soil P is seen with a moldboard plow here, but disking or use of a chisel plow will not effectively incorporate nutrients into the profile. Subsurface application is generally a good practice in no-till systems. We know that no-till systems help to build surface soil organic matter, but we also see stratification of soil organic carbon in these systems. On the graph to the right, the shaded areas to the right of the dashed line indicate that no-till stored more carbon at that depth. When the shaded areas are to the left of the dashed line, such as between 20 and 40 centimeters, conventional tillage stored more carbon at those depths. This indicates that there's a redistribution of soil organic carbon that occurs with tillage events, in addition to the immediate loss from the surface. With increasing attention on carbon sequestration and carbon markets, deep storage of carbon or carbon storage volume is an important aspect of how ag systems can contribute. The last issue that I'll briefly mention is that of weed management. With the increase of herbicide-resistant weeds and limited available chemistries, producers are having to rely on non-chemical methods of weed management, such as with cultural practices such as cover crops, or physical or mechanical disruption from tillage. So we've witnessed the extensive benefits of no-till in Tennessee, but also experienced some of the challenges. Instead of abandoning our no-till systems, we're beginning to investigate a model of strategic tillage. This can include a short-term or intermittent tillage event every 2 to 3 years, or occasional tillage that would occur once every 5 to 10 years, depending on the challenge being addressed. We know from the literature that even one tillage event can sometimes undo years of no-till benefits. However, we recognize the challenges faced in these systems and hope to be able to recommend an alternative to annual intensive tillage. In a large meta-analysis, one study looked at effects of occasional tillage with different tillage equipment, tillage frequency, clay content in the soil, crop, and climate. In these graphs, anything to the right of the dashed lines had a positive effect on yield. The overall effect of occasional tillage only slightly increased yields, but we can see that the use of the subsoiler in a 5 to 10 year frequency had the most positive effect on yield in these data sets. Looking at compaction, anything to the left of the dashed line provided a reduction in compaction. The overall effect of occasional tillage reduced compaction by 50%, with the highest reduction occurring in the first 0 to 12 months after the tillage event, with the soil settling and becoming recompacted after 12 and 24 months. This data set shows that there's a slight overall loss in soil organic carbon by utilizing occasional tillage. If occasional tillage is used to alleviate compaction issues, ideally it would occur as infrequently as possible, like more than every 5 years, and could potentially lead to a deeper distribution of soil organic carbon, alleviating the surface saturation that we sometimes encounter. In 2021, with the support of the Tennessee Cotton State Support, we initiated a field-scale trial to evaluate the impacts of no-till and occasional tillage at different frequencies on soil compaction and cotton growth, development, and yield. A secondary goal of the project is to track equipment traffic throughout the year to look at the potential for controlled traffic plans to minimize compaction. Treatments include continuous no-till, in-row subsoiling once out of 3 years, twice out of 3 years, and then annually, an annual shallow vertical tillage pass. And then we also separated treatments that included sprayer wheel tracks due to increased compaction from multiple sprayer passes into a continuous no-till and a subsoiling event once out of the 3 year in the trial. In-season measurements in early July of 21 found no significant differences in cotton development, growth, or in soil compaction. It's interesting to note that the treatments that were under tillage in 2021 had a much broader range of soil compaction as compared to the no-till treatments. The mean compaction level was 100 more PSI in the tillage treatment with wheel traffic than with no wheel traffic. No yield differences were witnessed in the first year of the study. So all of this means that tillage did not significantly reduce our soil compaction or have any effect on growth or final yield. So this study will continue at least through the end of 2023, and then final results will be available at UT Crops and at the 2024 Mile and No-Till Field Day. There are many other considerations besides tillage that could help mitigate some of the challenges seen with no-till management, including controlled traffic and cover crops, which I'm going to briefly mention, as well as optimizing nitrogen inputs and the use of crop rotations to alleviate compaction, weed and disease challenges, and nutrient stratification, while we can still be mindful of environmental concerns. Controlled traffic is the practice of running farm machinery over the same paths in the field from event to event and year to year, so that compaction resulting from those passes will be confined to the smallest possible portion of the field. The theory of controlled traffic is shown in these figures created by the University of Nebraska Extension. So on the left, we can see random wheel traffic patterns creating compaction over the majority of the field as compared to controlled wheel traffic here on the right. So in a single year, nearly 90% of a field is compacted by normal field operations under a conventional tillage system. And interestingly, 80% of soil compaction from wheel traffic occurs on the first pass of a tire. So ideally, we want to utilize GPS and controlled traffic patterns to minimize the portion of the field seeing wheel traffic. A benefit of having GPS and telemetry on our equipment is that we can pull down the traffic data and analyze it for patterns among and across growing seasons. We found that in both 20 and 21, 41% of this field saw wheel traffic from the planter, sprayer, and or cotton picker. When we're dealing with heavy compaction, we should also consider utilizing controlled traffic to minimize the coverage of this heavy equipment. The use of cover crops has increased substantially over the last decade and is well documented to help mitigate some of the issues that we face in these no-till systems. In this graph on the left, NT signifies no-till, NTW signifies no-till with winter wheat cover crop, and the other treatments are various types of tillage. Even without a large rooted brassica cover, the winter wheat reduced compaction to a similar level as a chisel or disc. Species selection is key in helping to alleviate compaction, improve nutrient cycling, increase carbon storage with depth, and control winter and early season weed pressure. Cover crops should be utilized in no-till systems and especially in an occasional tillage situation to help mitigate some of their erosion issues. The take-home message is not to abandon no-till. Depending on the issue we're facing, let's first consider non-mechanical options such as cover crops, controlled traffic, etc. Then, if we need additional help, let's consider a strategic tillage event as infrequently as possible to minimize soil erosion and achieve our desired results. Thank you for your attention, and please feel free to contact me with questions at the contact info on the screen. Thanks, and have